welcome to 3 Takeaways, our agency new business video series where we focus on one new business category and give you 3 takeaways to help improve your new business program. I'm McKnight Jr. I'm the VP of Sales at RSWUS. It's an unfortunate reality in our industry that new business directors at agencies last on average 18 months. Now, I take that stat from our own agency survey reports. You'll see stats and maybe slightly different in some instances. I've seen it quoted at 24 months, for example, but regardless, it's not very long, and is of course incredibly frustrating for agency owners to have that revolving door. So, why is this? The reasons are numerous, but for today's video, I want to break it down by certain types of new business director that we see out there, specifically in regards to why they're hired. Almost 3 different new business director persona types, if you will. So the big dilemma we see agency owners face time and time again. Do we hire an internal new business development person who's inexperienced, but fairly cheap in the scheme of things, and maybe seems driven, teachable, or someone who has that built-in book or network, and they're bringing to the table all that has. But lastly, there's that individual with solid sales experience, but a price tag to match. So it's time for our 3 takeaways, or in this case, new business director types. The first one, that new business director who I mentioned, is inexperienced, cheaper, seems teachable. Now, should you go there? Generally, the answer is no. Let me be a bit more specific, because this scenario typically looks like the following. They have 2 to 3 years of sales experience, maybe at most, possibly in one of the industries you play in, but usually not. Agencies tell themselves, hey, we can make this work. Well, selling agency services is very different from selling other types of industries. I know I'm preaching to the choir when I say that. It's all hard no matter what industry you're in. But agencies, with all the best intentions, will typically not have the patience or the willingness to train and foster that individual, to help them achieve success. And I've seen many times salespeople from other industries who think they can do this kind of sales work, and I've seen them fall flat. They're thinking, I've been in sales for a little while, how much harder, different can it be in terms of the transition? And then they find out. So, look, there are always exceptions. In terms of this type of hire specifically, the big one here, takes, for example, an AE within the agency who's shown real interest in driving new business. There's a lot of real-world examples of this. Now, that person's been with the agency, they know the culture, the work, the clients, all that's a big plus. And I've seen agencies have success with adding new business duties sort of incrementally. So that person is essentially auditioning, now, while still maintaining accounts. That can work. 2 things you have to remember in that scenario. First, you have to be willing, as I mentioned, to put real work behind their training, and you have to possess that requisite patience to see that process through. It's tough. And second, where I've seen that scenario not work, is when the account duties really never get taken away. And when that person shows real promise on the new business side, then they're expected to do more on the new business end, but still hold those and maintain those accounts. Don't do that. New business is a full-time job. It's a whole, actually another video topic. But the second takeaway, or person, is that built-in network. There are actually a few different variations of this new business director type. One is they have experience in one vertical and an abundant network of prospects within that vertical. I know this space and a lot of the players and prospects in it. Or 2, it's more localized or regional. They have that ultimate agency new business Rolodex, as I'm showing my age. In other words, I know a ton of people in the region or locally, and I can get us in doors across multiple verticals. Now, these kinds of hires occur fairly often, and I don't blame agencies for being drawn to them, and I've seen it work. But in far too many instances, that new business director with the legendary prospecting network ends up flaming out. And in fact, I spoke with an agency principal a while back on this very topic, and she gave me permission to share her kind of less than desirable experience. I always like to put kind of the real world into these videos. So this owner initially hired a new business development person with the legendary prospecting network, and there was experience in the vertical. Nice double whammy there. There were assurances, apparently all in good faith, from that individual that success would result from that network. Now, it sounded promising, but unfortunately was not in this case. So a couple of things didn't work out as planned. And first, and I'll give you a few bonus takeaways. Hitting up your friends is not a sustainable new business strategy. Second bonus takeaway is too often the individuals in that network are doing you a favor by meeting. The new business director, in this case, had plenty of contacts within the industry, some that were actual friends to an extent, and then others that were business contacts. They were at the right companies, but where it all failed as a strategy is pretty straightforward. As I said, the majority of those folks were doing that person a favor by meeting with the agency, and it didn't translate into business. So there's certainly something to be said for networking. I mean, it's important, but it became obvious after several of those conversations or meetings that these prospects were considering the meetings just that, a favor, rather than a meaningful consideration of the agency's services. Now, the new business director found it much harder than expected to approach and prospect these personal contacts after that. The next problem was a bigger one. The agency, had bought into the new business director's network, but that was losing steam. The good news was his experience in the vertical. As I mentioned, the agency felt reassured, this person would be able to speak the language, sell the agency with value. However, though this new business director, was a pretty charismatic networker, didn't really translate into being an effective salesperson once he was outside that network. And it quickly became evident that his network was the new business plan. I mean, yes, he knew the industry. His sales skills, however, weren't strong enough beyond those personal contacts and really what was mostly face-to-face networking, primarily at social events. It quickly became evident that he wasn't adept at translating his knowledge of the industry into a successful sales strategy. So unfortunately, this new hire was gone within a year. So the third takeaway for new business director type is that accomplished new business director with solid sales experience, but the price tag to match. This is more or less the one you want, right? A proven track record at past agencies, adept at sales through a variety of channels, and is successful, at every stage from top of the funnel through to pitching. Now, the problem that many of you will recite along with me is, look, they're hard to find. And then what I mentioned previously, they'll have a price tag to match. Now, that's not to say they shouldn't have that price tag. If they're good, they should be compensated appropriately. And the good news in terms of that price tag is there are obviously ways to structure a package that can work for all the parties. But again, it's finding those individuals, in my mind anyway, that's often the hardest part. And one other trend I see with these more accomplished new business professionals is they tend to jump from agency to agency. They start getting really good, and then they go somewhere else. So where does that leave us? A potential new business hire's personal network is valuable, as is industry experience, for sure. However, as an agency owner, hiring new business development person, that network can't be the driving force behind the hiring decision, certainly not the only one. And without a clear understanding of the level of sales acumen that person has as a foundation to leveraging their network to bring in new business, those are the things you have to think about. And if an individual can't sell, chances are overwhelmingly good that individual won't succeed in a new business development role. If you're willing to roll the dice on a person with lesser experience, you better be ready to nurture and guide them and give them time, really at least 12 months, without extenuating circumstances or something else, that give them that kind of opportunity. And look, I don't need to tell you how hard new business is generally, and the biggest piece of advice I can give here at the end is not to pull the trigger too quickly on a hire without thinking about these 3 new business types that I've talked about today. So thanks for watching 3 Takeaways. Lots of new business content on our resources page at the URL below. You can visit RSWUS.com if you're interested in our new business programs for marketing services firms. And last, here's where you can subscribe to our channel. Always appreciate any likes you can throw your way on this video. Thanks, see you next time.